.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box on this surprisingly snowy day. It really wasn't scheduled for this area. At least if you go to the people on TV, they'll say, well, you know, it's the northwest part of New York, which is like, you know, Buffalo or something, or wherever they go over west enough on their map. But it actually snowed a little bit. As a matter of fact, I saw an accident. It was leftovers of an accident. Actually, right when you come off the Meadowbrook Parkway, some guy went into there's a sign that says Nassau Community College made of brick or something, and he slid right into it. I saw an ambulance going right to it and a tow truck. So I hope the guy or girl is okay. Anyway, my name is Rob Leonard, and we're here every Monday. Joining me, of course, is award-winning sports writer and, yes, my brother, Tim Leonard. Hello, brother. How are you?
I'm outstanding. Well, not really outstanding. I'm pretty good, brother. How about that?
I'm doing well, too, brother. I'm doing well, too. We had a good time on Saturday. We took Mom for her birthday to go see The Music Man.
Mom's a big Hugh Jackman fan.
Loves who isn't, brother? Let's be honest.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
And, of course, Sutton Foster, who I have a major crush on, she was in it also. She plays Marion the librarian, and it was a very enjoyable show. I didn't realize how many of the songs I actually knew, because I don't think I've ever seen. I never saw the musical, and I don't remember
but
seeing
it was
the
you know,
movie.
we heard a lot of that soundtrack growing up.
Yeah, we had these soundtracks in our house, so we, you know, I like West Side Story and Hair and, you know, Music Man and Sound of Music, all those. So.
Right,
it was nice to see.
Exactly.
It was good to hang out and do that, and a lot of fun hanging out with Mom and Sis and you and me, and it was good. Of course, it's crazy. Let's be honest. Times Square at this time of the year is not the funnest place to be.
Oh
God, there were so many people.
I hated. That was the only part. That was the only part of the night that I hated.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I mean, I don't like walking in Times Square anyway. I mean, that's where tourists are. I don't like tourists. But man, double that with the holidays, and it's just insane.
I don't mind tourists. I don't mind tourists.
I am not a fan at all. I will not apologize for that. I will not apologize.
But they're the ones who keep the taxes low by paying overpriced, using money on overpriced things.
And then I know you and Suzanne got stuck behind us, and Mom just kept like pulling on my arm. I kept trying to slow her down, and she kept pulling on my arm. She's like, "Come on, walk faster, walk faster." I'm like. I was like, Mom, I can walk faster than you. And she's like, yeah, but I'm cold. Let's go.
Well, when Mom gets that kick in,
we're moving.
It's the Dave Waddle kick with Mom.
We're moving. We're on the way.
She's like,
we're getting to Penn Station in a hurry.
Yeah. So Penn looks pretty good. It's almost done for those who haven't been there in a while and are afraid to go into the New York City area. But it's actually pretty cool. So
yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah. So anyway,
good time. Nothing dangerous. Nothing. No problems. I had a good time.
Yeah, I did too. And let's start off the show. Well, we're going to go to football a little bit later. We usually start off with football, and you know what? The Jets and the Giants have been the story this fall, but the last few weeks they've been, I don't want to say playing like the old ways, but they haven't been playing the way we got used to them playing at the beginning of the season. Let's start off, brother, with the New York Mets. I hate to say it. I don't know if the Mets are spending too much. I like that they are, but I also think, are they just overspending because they just want to shut the media and the fans up, and we'll worry about it in August of next year? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, Verlander, $43 million a year for 2 years. Okay, but it's only for 2 years.
He got the Scherzer contract.
Right, but it's
that's what he got.
I know, but it's like, I don't know, man. Is it worth $43 million, brother? 43 million.
We'll find out, brother. I mean, we talked about Verlander last week when he signed, and the issue that is going on about the Mets right now is, some people thought that once the Mets got close to that last threshold that they would slow down, and instead Steve Cohen has just said, I don't care about this. You have to remember, brother. At the last collective bargaining agreement, they talked about a fourth tier of a luxury tax, and immediately it was known as the Steve Cohen tax, because Major League Baseball, the other owners, I think even the league itself, were concerned that Steve Cohen, because he is one of the wealthiest people in the world, was just going to blow past this tax and not care about how much money he spent building a team. And right now, I mean, last year it was okay. Yeah, we'll be good. We're not going to go crazy. Whatever. And Steve Cohen, I think, after losing in the first round to the Padres of the National League Division Series, or the Wild Card Series, excuse me, I think Steve Cohen said, I'm not playing nice anymore. I'm going to get what I need and get what I feel that I need to make the Mets a better teammate and an actual World Series contender. And if you look at what is going on, this week the Mets, I mean, first of all, they signed Brandon Nimmo, 8 years, $162 million, and even Met fans who I know were stunned by that number. It's a massive number for Brandon. And Brandon Nimmo, he brings you certain things. He brings you very good on-base percentage. He brings you very good center field defense. But is that worth $20 million plus a year for 8 years?
No.
I mean, I don't know that anybody thinks that Nimmo is worth that much. I think maybe people were looking at somewhere in more of the 16, 17, 18 million a year range, and not for as many years. But Steve Cohen he just wants to get deals done, and he's not waiting around. And if it means it's going to cost him a few million extra, he doesn't seem to care. So we're looking at,
he also knows, bro. He also knows he's a New Yorker. He knows for a fact that if you win any championship game in New York City, you're the king of New York for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and he wants to be that guy for the Met fans.
Right.
I mean, everybody knows he is a Met fan.
Right.
And right now he is the Met fan because he's the guy paying the bills.
But it probably helps his business a little bit, It's like, well, he deals with funds and stuff. People invest in that,
He deals with wealthy people. He doesn't deal with Joe Six-Packs.
Maybe.
As far as I know, anyway. But the thing I wanted to talk about with what's going on here is anytime the payroll goes above $293 million, then the tax rate for the luxury tax goes up to 90%.
Way too high.
It's basically you're doubling everything you spend after $293 million. So if you get somebody for $20 million a year, after $293 million, you're basically paying that person $40 million a year.
That's not really fair, is it?
Of course, it's fair.
No, it's not.
Of course, it is, because you have teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates who can't afford to spend more than, say, $80 million a year.
Well,
and you're going to allow another team to spend at least 4 times more than what the Pirates. How is the Pirates supposed to compete?
As we've seen for many years, brother, spending the most money doesn't always win, and I'm sure there's a chart somewhere that says that the team that spent the most money didn't win every year.
The team that spends the most money rarely wins, as a matter of fact. But
right.
we're talking the most, number one on that list. You have to remember, brother, that when you're talking about when somebody, whether it's spending the most or the top anything, you're talking about one team. Brazil came into the World Cup as the favorite to win. Well, Brazil's done.
Right.
So when you're only talking about one team, I don't think people still, and I don't understand why, because I've tried to explain this so many times, it is, especially nowadays with so many levels of playoffs, it is an incredibly lucky thing to win the World Series. Yes, you have to have a good team, but you also have to have a lot of luck.
Sure.
Because without luck, you're just not going to win. All it takes is for one pitcher to have one bad day. And I hate to rub it in on Met fans, but look at the Mets as the example. If they would have beaten the Braves in one of those games, they would have won the division. If Max Scherzer and Max Scherzer and DeGrom were supposed to be the 1-2. They were supposed to not lose. Well, then Max Scherzer loses the first game of the series. And then you have Chris Bassett starting on game 3, and that was, that didn't go well. So, the Mets were supposed to have this dynamic pitching staff, and it didn't work out that way. So that's what I'm talking about luck. I mean, you don't expect to go into a 3-game series with Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer and lose that series.
No, but
I don't care who you're going against.
I think 90% is way too high. Just because you have money, you shouldn't be screwed over for that. What they're saying
Major League Baseball doesn't want rampant spending.
Well, they already have it. The best way to do it, brother, and I said this before, and I will say it again. The best way to do it is you go to the Players Association and say, we're going to end the salary cap, but we want a cap on years on contract, 4 years tops, and see what happens. Because
I doubt the players would go for that.
Because you can't keep giving out 8-year contracts.
Yeah, but those are rare, brother. I mean, because you see them now, and there are so many.
This is when you're going to see them.
But how many of them have we seen this off season? I mean, there's been a handful. There's probably been about maybe 8.
A handful is a lot, brother.
I know, but it's 8.
Yeah, so
so you do the math. There's 30 teams in Major League Baseball.
Right, but we know the Kansas City Royals and the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Milwaukee Brewers aren't going to give these 8-year contracts.
The Brewers, well, I don't know. They had Christian Yelich. He wasn't on an 8-year contract, but he was on a long-term deal. He still is. But, there are teams out there that probably would do that long of a contract if the terms were right. They're not going to give somebody 8 years and give them $30-something million a year because they don't want to get locked into that length and
Aaron
that
Judge
much money.
got all that money,
Yeah, but you were talking about the Brewers. Now you're talking about the Yankees. You're talking about apples and oranges here, brother.
Well, they're all Major League Baseball teams, Tim, so they're all apples. Or
no,
oranges.
they're not.
Well, then
they're not.
Then get rid of the bad teams who have no money. Make it like the Premier League. Some Saudi sheik comes in with all this money.
And so now you're talking about Major League Baseball with a dozen teams.
Well, if it makes it a little more intense, why not? Boston Red Sox Mets always is a great series. Boston Red Sox Yankees is always a great series.
It's not going to work that way.
The old days, the Cubs Mets used to be a great series.
You're not going to have people who spent tens of millions of dollars on their franchises or hundreds of millions, and now it's getting into billions. You're not going to get those people to say, "Oh, all right, yeah, we're going to have you compete in the lower league now."
Well, I know that, brother, but
and you're not going to be able to charge prime prices, and you're going to lose money.
They're not doing anything anyway, brother. They don't spend their money. The Royals won the World Series in 2015. They didn't have an expensive team.
No, they didn't, and that's the way teams are able to build, and that's why that's why the luxury tax even exists is to try to create more revenue for those teams. Now, when we're talking about the Steve Cohen tax, and you're talking about how unfair it is, right now the Mets are the only team that's even close to it. So, and the Mets are over it. The Mets right now, their payroll is $80 million higher than any other team.
Right. So they're going to pay $160
million. It's going to go higher.
It's going to pay
$200 million.
$200 And what happens to that money? It goes to each team?
It goes. It's circulated amongst the lower revenue teams.
That's not fair either. It should be to all 30 teams.
No.
Yes.
Why? Because the Yankees don't need the Mets tax money. They're making plenty of money on their own. The Dodgers don't need it. So no, it shouldn't go to all the teams. It should go to the teams that don't have.
But do they spend the money? My question is about these lower level teams, the Kansas City Royals, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, stop throwing the Brewers in there. The Brewers are doing fine. The Brewers are a contender.
Okay. Well, we'll say the ones I mentioned. Okay.
Say the Oakland A's. How about the
Oakland A's? You're soon to be the Las Vegas A's because they're definitely moving. No, they're moving. They're moving. You want to bet? I will bet $100.
I'll believe them when I hear. I'll believe them. I think they're going to move because I think they have to move. But let's let them actually announce it first.
Okay, so let's say does it guarantee that the money they get goes to the players? That's the question.
No, of course not.
Then you can't. Then you can't give them the money. What it
Well,
has
that's
to,
why I've said for years that there should be a salary floor as well as a salary cap or
Right.
luxury tax number, whatever.
I have no problem with that.
That should be part of it. And the owners can't get on the same page about that, and that's their issue.
Well,
And that's
it
something
sounds like the lower level teams, and I hate using that term, are accepting welfare from the upper level teams, and then not using it. You know,
it's a very basic way of explaining it, brother. But to a certain extent, that's right. And I'm not saying that not every team is using money, because some of them are and some of them aren't. I mean, it depends on the team. But there are certainly teams that are taking those checks and putting them in their pockets, and claiming that they're losing money. I find it incredibly hard to believe that any major league team is actually losing money.
Well,
a major league baseball team is basically permission to print money.
Right, but what happens
now some get to print
well,
more
hold
than
on,
others.
Tim. Let me get in here first. Go
ahead, bro.
Part of the problem is that TV contracts aren't equalized for local.
What word did you just say?
Equalized.
Contini? What is that?
No, contracts.
What was the word before that?
I don't know. I don't write down.
Or did you just misspeak?
I didn't misspeak.
It sounded like you said. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, like for example, Kansas City makes a lot less in their TV contract for the Kansas City market than the New York Mets do, and
of course,
and the same with other markets. Now, if everyone split the TV money, which they never will, because that involves TV networks, but that's where the money is. And then you have to have levels. You know, some people own their stadiums, some don't. Some have great deals on the stadiums, some don't. Some, claim they're paying off the stadium for 40 years, and by the time they pay it off, then it'll be paid off. But they've already paid it off because they've already taken in enough money to pay it off. If you spend $1 billion, well, you're going to make it back. If you're paying, Aaron Judge $40 million a year, guess what? That you're going to pay back. Enough people are going to come out to say, "Oh, Aaron Judge, let's go see him." You look at
exactly.
I love watching. They, especially the last couple of weeks when they showed stuff with Mattingly because of the possibility of being in the Hall of Fame. In the '80s, if you look at the upper deck of Yankee Stadium in right field, no one was ever there. But now
it was rare that those seats had people in them.
Yeah, but now those seats are taken.
The times that they had people in them was when they had the little leagues in or something. That's where they sat.
Yeah, but now those seats are sold out. So, or at least a lot more. So there's more people coming to games than ever.
No, well, that's because the capacity of Yankee Stadium is 5,000 less than it used to be.
But I know, but it doesn't mean anything.
So,
it's only 5,000.
Something. It's 5,000 less tickets.
But even in the '90s, when they were still at the real Yankee Stadium, they were a much better team too.
If you're talking about the late Yankees, no, those seats were mostly full. Or, well, I don't even want to say that because again, it was 50. It was like 50. What was it? 55,000 or something.
Right.
Or 53,000 was a sellout.
Yeah.
And now it's like 48 or something.
Right.
So that's why. I mean, add 7,000 seats. Where do you think those people were? They were there, but they just weren't all the way up in the high seats.
Well,
now a lot of people they go to a game have to sit in the high seats.
That's true.
That's all they can afford.
That's all you can afford, brother. I agree.
Anyway, brother, the point that I'm making here, and let's get back to the actual news here, because the Mets signed Japanese right-handed Kodai Senga to a 5-year, $75 million contract. The same day that the Mets signed Nimmo, they also signed David Robertson, the former Yankee, to a 1-year, $10 million deal. So the Mets, and let's not forget Jose Quintana, right after Verlander signed. So the Mets needed 3 starters after DeGrom left for that insane deal for the Texas Rangers, and now they have them. And I'm wondering, does any general manager in baseball have an easier job than Billy Epler? Because all he's got to do is just go to Steve Cohen and say, "Hey, I need a check," and Cohen's like, "Here you go. I'll just sign it. Just fill in the numbers, and we're good." Because that's basically the way the Mets are operating right now. Steve Cohen doesn't say no.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
I'm not saying necessarily it is a bad thing. I'm kind of curious in some ways to see, what the Mets are going to do and how they're going to do it. Because, like I said, the Mets still have some holes. Their payroll at this point, if you go all through the luxury tax numbers that they're going to have to pay. Right now, their payroll is over $421 million. That's including the tax payments.
That's a lot.
That and again, they still have holes to fill.
Right, and I don't think you should. I'm not a believer that every position be filled by an all-star. I think.
The Mets don't have all-stars at every position.
You know what I mean.
That's the thing.
They're paying.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying for sure. But what are the Mets going to do? Like, are they going to go into the season with James McCann as the catcher? Or I don't think Francisco Alvarez should start the season in the majors. He's 21 years old. Do you really think that Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander are going to want to throw to a 21-year-old kid who's still wet behind the ears and still needs at bats at the minor league level?
Maybe.
If for no other reason than he needs to learn how to be a catcher. He can hit.
We'll see.
But he needs to learn how to catch.
What about signing Michael Conforto, brother? Bring him back?
Well, where do you put him at this point? I don't even know where the Mets put him.
I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing. The Mets, you can't just keep signing players because you have to actually play players. I mean, right now, it's a real possibility that the Yankees might be where Conforto lands.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think he wants to stay in New York. I think he can come back too. So.
I think if Conforto wants, I don't know that anybody's going to give Conforto a long-term deal because he had the shoulder injury, the surgery last year after he got hurt working out while he was looking to sign with somebody, sat out the whole year, and I think he's looking for a place on a one-year contract, and I think that would suit the Yankees well if Andrew Benintendi doesn't sign.
Right.
Because the Red Sox signed that other Japanese guy with Yoshida, I think his name is. And paid just an absurd amount for him. It was $90 million over, I think, 5 years. Plus, there was a posting fee involved because he wasn't a true free agent like Senga, like the pitcher the Mets just signed. And they wound up paying like $105 million for this guy, the Red Sox, for the hitter. So
wow.
I think what
you
we're
mean
looking at
$105
here,
million extra or just 105 total?
105 total. It was a $15+ million posting fee. So it was $90 million in salary over, I think it was 5 years. So it's basically like $18 million a year for a guy who, I like him. Everything I've read about him, I like the guy. I think he's going to be a good player in the major leagues. But any Japanese player comes with risk because you don't know how the baseball over there is going to translate over here.
Right.
Obviously it was good with guys like Matsui and Ichiro Suzuki, but you never know. You never know how a guy is going to be. I mean, Irabu came over here, and everybody thought he was, the Japanese Nolan Ryan, and then he turned into just basically another pitcher. So, in terms of where the Mets are right now, they still need a few players. They're still going to pay the money. I don't know if they're planning on trading anybody away to maybe reduce their payroll obligation and maybe lower the tax a little bit, but I mean, right now they're so far past the 293 number. They're not going to be able to trade players away to get under that, and they would have to trade $40 or $50 million worth of players. That's not going to happen.
No, but how long does Uncle Steve wait? Let's say it doesn't happen. 2023. When does he start to trade away or get rid of this or pay off or whatever?
Well, it'll be when he decides. It's going to depend on a couple of factors. Number one, when Pete Alonso, when Pete Alonso becomes a free agent, does Steve Cohen want to sign him, or the Mets let him go and do something else at first base? When Alvarez is ready to come in and be the full-time catcher, he'll be cheap, so that'll actually help the payroll. But the Mets, as a system right now, they're still a year or two away from developing, impact hitters. I mean, Brett Beatty, I don't know if he's going to be somebody who they're looking at to start at third base this season. But that's kind of where we're looking is what do they have in the minor leagues that might be able to make an impact on the field on an everyday basis, and this just means that they won't have to go out and buy as many players. And they're not buying middle of the road guys. They're not buying, somebody to fill a roster spot. They're like David Robertson for $10 million. I mean, that's, he is still a good pitcher. I think it was an overpay for him for $10 million, but hey, it got the deal done. So that's what they wanted.
Right. And you think about Pete Alonso, just so you'd mention him, you would have to re-sign him, brother. He's playing too well. He's a
home run hitter. There's a lot of home run hitters out there. He's not a good defensive first baseman. So would the Mets want to find somebody who's a better defensive player who maybe won't hit as many home runs, but maybe will be a little better overall with the bat, who's maybe more of a contact hitter and maybe he'll hit 30 home runs and bat 280 as opposed to hitting 40-something home runs and hitting 250. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it depends on what kind of club you want. And obviously, Alonso gives them a lot of power, and the Mets still could use a power hitter. They were talk about, before Judge signed back with the Yankees, there was talk that Aaron Judge would solve a lot of what was wrong with the Mets. Right, but that's because something different. He brought that. That's those are the kinds of things that we're talking about here, and this is part of the problem with trying to solve. And I've said this before. This is the part of the problem with trying to solve all of your problems in one off season. Right, is that it requires long-term contracts, and if it doesn't work, well, then you get to the end of the 2023 season. And you have a lot of long-term contracts, and you're kind of looking around saying, all right, well, what doesn't work and how can we get rid of it? And a lot of times other teams don't want your problems. So it makes it that much more difficult to get rid of them. And now you're stuck with players, or you have to either trade assets so you can trade a player you no longer want who is still under contract for, whether it's 1, 2, 3 years or whatever, or you either have to pay a chunk of that contract to get rid of them, or you'll have to include like a talented minor leaguer to get another club to pay the guy with the big contract. Yeah, well, and you don't want to do that. That's just wasting possible assets, and it also drives the payroll even higher.
It's like the Robinson Cano deal.
Right, exactly. But the Mariners dropped that contract on the Mets. Right. And by the way, that contract is still on the payroll this year. That's part of the $421 million I just mentioned.
Okay. What about the Yankees, brother? Who they'd sign this weekend or this week?
Well, they didn't sign anybody. I mean, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the Yankees to do something in this market. I was talking to my Facebook friend Jessica. She's a big Braves fan, and she was talking about, oh well, look at how much the Yankees are spending. And I'm like, well, I said, the Yankees really haven't spent. And she was giving me grief when I said that. I'm like, well, I said, I consider spending going out and doing something to make your team better. I said, all the Yankees have done basically is re-sign Judge and re-sign Rizzo. I said, they're not better. They're just the same. I said, they brought in Tommy Kahnle. Tommy Kahnle is not moving the needle. He's a relief pitcher for anybody who doesn't know who he is. Pretty good relief pitcher, but he's a relief pitcher. So I'm still waiting for the Yankees to actually make a move in this offseason. Because, Judge, was Judge a move? Yes, he was. Of course, you had to keep him. And, of course, he cost a lot of money to keep. But does signing Aaron Judge to a 9-year contract make the Yankees better? Of course it doesn't. The Yankees are the same as they were. So that's what I'm waiting for the Yankees to either sign Carlos Rodon or to sign Andrew Benintendi. I'd love, we're Yankee fans everywhere are still waiting for them to unload Josh Donaldson and or Aaron Hicks. That's going to be a tough sell because Donaldson has $25 million left on his contract. Hicks has a couple of years left on his deal, although his deal I think is paying him about $11 million a year. So that probably would be a little bit easier to get rid of than Donaldson's 1 year $25. Although if the Yankees said, "Hey, we'll pay $10 million of Donaldson's contract," I'm sure you could get more people to listen, but again, it's only a 1 year deal, so they would have to either put a sweetener in with it, or take a bad contract from another team, or take a head case. I don't know, but it's that's what we're looking at right now. The Yankees have a few players at this point who are either major league ready or close to major league ready, right. So they're going to have a lot of small salaries on the books. We're talking about Peraza, who the fans saw last year. and Anthony Volpe, the Jersey kid who was the number 1 draft pick a few years ago, who they don't want to trade because they want him to be their starting shortstop, as opposed to spending $300 million plus on Trey Turner or Xander Bogaerts or Francisco Lindor or whatever. They think this kid is going to be that level of player.
Right.
So, but that's, I mean, right now with the Yankees, we're just waiting. We're waiting for Carlos Rodon. And like I said, maybe Michael Conforto on, a 1-year deal for, I don't know, a $4 million base with a bunch of incentives based on playing time, at-bats, and staying healthy.
Okay, well, we got to take a break right now, brother.
Yeah.
You're listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. I'm Rob Leonard. He's Tim Leonard. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
It's Big Ed inviting you to join me Mondays from 10 till noon for the Good Gold Show. We've got the greatest hits of all time, all your faves of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. A whole lot of fun, and we'll keep you informed. Plus, we'll take your requests and your dedications.
Playing favorites.
So join me Mondays from 10 till noon for Good Gold on 90.3 WHPC, available on the Odyssey, iHeart, and WHPC apps.
Wow. Okay.
Yo.
Tell your friends about the Nassau Morning Madhouse. Hear what you're missing.
Check it out. Check it out.
I think M&Ms are only good when they're not the original M&Ms. I think original M&Ms suck. The problem I have with regular M&Ms is the same thing I have with Hershey bars. It's just too plain.
If anybody goes to like a deli who's like, I'll have a Hershey bar, I'm like, that person murders children. That's the vibe I'm getting.
100%.
Are you calling me a murderer?
Oh God!
Are
This guy
you
wants
calling me a murderer?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to pop a Hershey Kiss in your mouth.
a Hershey Kiss is different than a Hershey bar,
It's
though.
the same
no,
thing.
He's a crazy person, right?
I was scared when he walked in.
I would watch out.
You ever watch those documentaries? They always start off like, he loved Hershey. He would boil his victims into the Hershey bar.
Said, you're my little Hershey Kiss.
The Nassau Morning Madhouse. Weekday mornings from 7 to 9. On the voice of Nassau Community College.
90.3 WHPC.
Shake off the realities of the day, broaden your musical horizons, and embrace the diversity every Monday afternoon at 5 for 2 hours of Revelations. The show offers a potently unique collection of music with an emphasis on themes and rock rarities, an occasional tour de force of blues and soul, mixed with compelling sets of folk and folk rock. I'm Steve K, and I've got the perfect soundtrack for your drive home every Monday afternoon at 5 on Revelations, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Friends, may I have your attention, please? Attention, please. I can deal with his troubled friends with a wave of my hand, this very hand. Please observe me, if you will. I'm Professor Harold Hill, and I'm here to organize the River City Boys Band. Oh, think, my friends, how could any pool table ever hope to compete with a gold trombone?
90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. A little excerpt from The Music Man with Hugh Jackman there. Of course, Sutton Foster's also in the musical. We saw it on Saturday at the Winter Garden Theater, which has been around forever. You can look at it. The place just looks old. But that's good. I like old. Anyway, I was with my brother and mother and sister. Hello, brother. Welcome back to the show. You there? Oh, hold on. Let me make sure you're there. You there, brother?
I'm here now, brother. Why don't you tell me you're putting me on hold?
Well, what else am I going to do?
Communicate, brother.
I did. I was trying to get through to you. You didn't answer the phone.
I couldn't hear anything you said.
Well, don't worry about it, brother. Let's continue the show. Don't be a moron. Anyway, you're listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC. I'm Rob Leonard, and yes, that is my brother, Tim Leonard, the happy-go-lucky guy that Tim Leonard is.
That's good, brother. We should always have more fights on the air.
Well, hey, you want to start it. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, let's continue with our fine show. World Cup soccer is going along. It's on its way to the finals, but lots of upsets, I think, brother. I don't think that people thought this was going to be the way it is, in the sense that Morocco is
Morocco is the upset, brother. There really haven't been too many other upsets in the quarterfinal round anyway, or ever since the round of 16 started. So, I mean...
You thought France was going to beat England?
Yeah, absolutely.
You did, even though Harry Kane
absolutely
screwed up. I saw
absolutely.
the kick today. I can't believe how he missed that. He kicked it right at the
It happens,
goalie.
bro. Well, he kicked it over the goalie, so I mean that's what happened.
Yeah.
I know what he was trying to do. He just kicked it too high. He was trying to go down the middle of the goal, but he wanted the ball to be elevated because sometimes when a goalie dives, if you kick the ball straight down the middle, if they're athletic enough, they can get their leg up, and sometimes the ball will hit the goalie in the foot, and they'll make a save that they didn't mean to make. So he was trying to elevate the ball to make it like head high, and he just kicked it too high. It happens. I mean, Harry Kane usually will go for a corner, and he's very good at picking out a corner. But the disadvantage that he had in this instance was, first of all, he had already taken a penalty kick earlier in the game. And secondly, the goalie is Hugo Lloris for France. And that is his Tottenham teammate. So who do you think Harry Kane works on penalty kicks with all the time? Hugo Lloris.
Okay.
So Hugo knows him better than any goalie on the planet in terms of what he wants to do with penalty kicks. And I think Harry Kane probably just overthought it a little bit because he, like I said, he almost never goes down the middle like that. Almost never. And I think he just kind of figured, all right, he knows I'm going to go one way or the other. He's going to dive. Let me just go down the middle. It'll be easy. And for whatever reason, he just got a little bit too far under the ball. Maybe he slipped. I don't know. But, there was something didn't work the way it almost always. Harry Kane is one of the best penalty kick takers in the world. And when I heard that he missed the kick, because that happened while we were in the theater on Saturday, when I heard he missed the kick, I was just, as the Brits would say, I was gobsmacked because I could not believe that was the case. But yeah, did I think France was going to win? Absolutely. France is the reigning champion, and they're still a very good team. England is a team that the manager Gareth Southgate is more of a defensive-minded guy. He doesn't play his creative players as much as he should. He left a couple of players, Jack Grealish and James Maddison among them, on the bench for pretty much the entirety of the game. That's a problem. He's Harry Kane needs service, and he needs players to get him the ball, and there weren't enough of those kinds of players on the field for England in pretty much the entire World Cup, never mind just that one game against France. And France, of course, has Kylian Mbappe, who is one of the best players in the world. I mean, let's put it this way. Had England won the game, would I have been stunned? No, I wouldn't have been stunned because England's a very good team. But I forget who it was who asked me before the game. In fact, I think it was my man House. Said before the game, who do you got, England or France? And I said France. And I'm like, I said the same thing. I said, if England wins, I'm not going to be crazy surprised. I said, but if you're asking me to pick one or the other, and if you're putting money on it, I would say put your money on France. Okay. And he said, yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying. I'm like, well, then a lot of people are right.
I would have went with England if I was betting.
Well, then you would have lost, brother. So it's a good thing you didn't.
I'm glad. That's why I don't bet on sports.
Well, you got to ask me. That's what if you don't bet on sports,
I have asked you. I remember doing the some NCAA things with you, and I lost. So
the NCAA tournament is a crapshoot.
I know, but I remember one time one year I changed a couple of your things, and I actually was doing better than you, and you were so upset.
Well,
I didn't.
First of all, you were upset.
Last year? Might have been last year.
Last year you picked Kansas, didn't you?
Yeah, by chance, and you got so angry when they
2
did
years
well.
ago. 2 years? No, who won last year? Kansas didn't win last year, did they?
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember now. Whichever year you picked Kansas, they won.
I know, but it was a mistake.
I know it was, but you kept talking about it for a year.
I know, but yeah, that's what I do. It's like when the Yankees did well, and I said the reason I felt that is because I watched an exhibition game one time. I said, they're going to do good this year. And you're writing them off. It's going to be a redo of the year, and blah, 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 blah. So
yes.
So anyway, so Tuesday, tomorrow, you got Croatia versus Argentina. Look at that.
Yes, Lionel Messi still alive and still going for the one prize that has eluded him in his illustrious career, that being the World Cup. going up against Croatia, which ousted Brazil in penalty kicks. You know, Croatia is a tiny little country. I think I heard them say they have something like 4 million people in the entire country.
Wow.
So they have the population of half of New York, and they're in the World Cup semifinals. And this is the second. Excuse me. This is the second World Cup. Croatia was in the finals last World Cup against France and lost to France. So now Croatia's in the semifinals again. This is a story that I don't think is receiving enough attention. This tiny little country that I think they've been in 6 World Cups, and this is the 3rd time that they've made the semifinals.
Right.
So, which is a pretty remarkable feat. But you know, and Croatia actually defeated Argentina 3-0 in the 2018 World Cup on their way to the final. But you know, this a lot of people are looking at this as Messi's last chance. And obviously they need to get past Croatia to get to the final. I think that's the intrigue of this game. Is you know, can Messi get 2 more wins? I mean, obviously for tomorrow, can he get 1 more win? Because that's the obviously you can't win it if you don't get to the final. But Croatia's a good team. They're a tough team. They're not particularly flashy, but they play solid soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, and they grind out results. You know, Brazil got their first goal the other day, and everybody, as soon as Neymar scored, people wrote off Croatia. Oh, it's over, it's done, not going to happen. And Brazil took their foot off the gas, and Croatia wound up scoring in I think it was like the 118th minute or whatever for overtime, and now we go to penalty kicks. And the first kick, the Croatia goalies played phenomenal in this tournament. He stopped so many penalty kicks. It's been ridiculous. I wouldn't mind seeing this guy come to Tottenham at some point. But he's been unbelievable, and he pretty much won that penalty kick shootout for Croatia. I don't want to say single-handedly, but he had a big job. And then on the last kick that Brazil needed to extend it, the guy hit the post.
Wow.
Trying to be a little too perfect. So that's what we're looking at tomorrow, 2:00 for that game. And then Wednesday, France versus Morocco. Now, Morocco, like you said, brother, was a surprise of the tournament. Stunned Portugal 1-0, and that was the game that Cristiano Ronaldo did not start again. The Portuguese coach kind of phased him out. Part of that had to do with Ronaldo griping when he was substituted for in a previous match, and apparently the coach didn't see it when Ronaldo was coming off the field, but he got a look at a replay of it and was not happy about it, and told Ronaldo to take a seat on the bench, and Portugal wound up winning that game 6-1, and the guy he started for Ronaldo wound up scoring a hat trick. So, and that guy is 21 years old, and Ronaldo is 37. So, you know, it doesn't take a genius to do the math on this one, that Ronaldo's on his way out, because, you know, I mean, no matter how good a player is, age is always going to catch up. Age never loses. So, you know, Ronaldo at this point, I think, you know, the other day was probably his last match for Portugal. I can't imagine him coming back anymore, because, you know, he's not going to be playing in the World Cup at age 41.
That's too bad.
And there's already rumors going around that he's gonna take some kind of crazy deal to go play in Saudi Arabia for a year that would pay him, I forget what the number was, but it was something like $170 million for a year.
That's a lot of money.
And it's just insane. But anyway, France and Morocco. And Morocco is everybody keeps counting them out, but they won their group. Then, like I said, they stunned Portugal. They just keep advancing, and you know, that's the old cliche: survive and advance, and that's what Morocco keeps doing. Now, France is definitely the best team that they're going to play, and just if you just look at this and say, well, on talent, yeah, France should win this game easily, and it shouldn't be. It should be like 3-0 at least, if not more than that. But crazy stuff happens at the World Cup. And I'm not going to sit here and say Morocco has no chance, because so many people have been saying they have no chance in their last couple of games, not even just the last game, but Portugal was supposed to beat them easily. And Morocco scored on a header, cross comes in, header, goal, and they play obviously very good defense. The only goal Morocco has allowed in this tournament was an own goal. So it's going to take a lot for France to score goals, but France has a lot of talent. And I don't see France being held scoreless, or I think they're going to score a couple. So I think that really for me the big game is Argentina-Croatia, because that's going to be who plays France in the World Cup final. And I, either way, I'm fine with it, because Croatia and France, that would be a repeat of the 2018 final, or if it's Argentina and France, then we get all the drama of, how will Messi do in the biggest game of his career.
Right.
You can talk about Champions League all you want, but this will be a World Cup final, and how is Messi going to perform in what likely would be his last game for Argentina, win or lose? Because again, he's I think a year younger than Ronaldo, but again, he's going to be approaching 40 for the next World Cup.
Right, and
he's not going to be on the Argentina team.
This is the way you want to go out. This is the way
Oh, of course.
As much as he's one of the greats and he's played on great teams. Especially for outside of the United States, the World Cup is it. You're remembered for generations. So
yeah, I mean, you win the World Cup and you're a legend, and especially when you're somebody like Messi, who already is a legend, it just cements your greatness as a player. And that's why when people say greatest of all time, they talk about Pelé and to a lesser extent Maradona. They've both won World Cups. So that's part of it, and that's why I think that a lot of fans see Messi and Ronaldo as being slightly below the level of those two guys, even though numbers wise they probably it's hard to say if they are or not. But Messi's been living in Maradona's shadow for basically his entire career, because they always say, well, Maradona won a cup. What have you done?
It's a good point.
He's a great player, no doubt. He's a great player, but no, he hasn't held the cup.
Very important. It's very important. Let's quickly go through some other teams. What's going on with the world of sports? The Islanders have lost 4 out of the last 6. But one of the wins was over the Devils, which right now is really the best team in hockey, really, if you think about it.
Well, the Bruins are the best team in hockey. The Devils are second.
Yeah, but the Devils weren't expected to be this good. That's why I give them a little, just a little.
Oh, definitely not.
Push
over the Devils are definitely the surprised team in the NHL this season, without a doubt. The Bruins, people expect the Bruins to be good. I don't think they expect the Bruins to be this good. But, if we're just going by points, then the Bruins are the best team in the league, but the Devils are the second best team in the league. But, yeah, biggest surprise, definitely the Devils. But, yeah, that was the Islanders won that game 6-4. Brock Nelson had a couple of goals. My man Cal Clutterbuck had a goal and assist. It was a very solid performance by the Islanders in that game. And it was something they needed, too, because Devils are running away with the Metropolitan Division. But when the Islanders play that well against the Devils, and then a few nights later they lose 3-0 to Carolina, that's the part I don't understand.
Right.
And the Hurricanes goalie, Peter Kochetkov, he made 16 saves for the shutout. That tells me the Islanders played a really awful game. So, how does that happen where you play so well a few nights before that to beat one of the best teams in hockey? And don't get me wrong, Carolina's a good team, but they're not in an elite level yet. They're a couple points ahead of the Islanders in the Metropolitan Division. But how do you let yourself get outplayed to that extent? And that's the confusing part to me about what's going on with the Islanders, because they've had good stretches. Before this stretch where they're 2-4 in their last 6, they had won 4 in a row, and it just seems like when they get on a decent run, then something happens that they just kind of shoot themselves in the foot, and I'm not really sure why that is. And I think that's something obviously that the new coach Lane Lambert needs to figure out, because one thing that you need in any professional sports season is consistency, and the Islanders aren't there yet.
Not right now. They're playing well, but they're just not playing what I think they should be playing at. I think this team's better than what they're playing at. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, that's consistency. I mean, that's what you need to know, what you're going to get from the team every night. And again, I mean, the outstanding effort that they put in against the Devils just was completely negated because they played so badly again. I mean, they looked awful against Carolina.
Sure,
absolutely awful.
Yeah, they did. Let's see, who else do we have to talk about here? We have to talk about. Let's talk about the Jets
football,
now,
brother.
Let's
get football.
Let's get to the football. We usually start off with football. We purposely pushed it to the back because both teams lost.
They just keep losing again.
And
I mean,
this is like the old days with the Jets and the Giants. It's just not as good as it should be.
Well, I mean, it was the first half of the season just held so much promise, and everybody was playing well, and the Jets kept winning games, and the Giants kept winning games, and it kind of allowed the local fans to dream a little bit and to say, all right, well, maybe we're ahead of schedule with everything that they're trying to do with these teams, and now we're pretty much kind of back to earth here because. I mean, we talk about the Jets, and obviously the Zach Wilson thing is still kind of hanging over the team. But there is not a player in that locker room that doesn't love Mike White. And here is a guy who his issue, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, his issue the last time he came in to start was that he got hurt in – I think it was the second game he played. Played a great first game, second game got hurt, and was done. And here we are. He played a great first game, played pretty well against the Vikings, even though the Jets lost that game. And then yesterday, I don't know that we have a specific diagnosis yet, but I'm almost certain that he broke a rib because he got sacked. In fact, he was knocked out of the game twice. There was the second one was Matt Milano, who just absolutely destroyed him. Got a clean run, came in and just hit White right smack in the gut with a shoulder, and White was just he looked crippled after that. To have him get him off the field, get him checked out. Joe Flacco comes in, play a series, fumbles the ball. I think we might see the release of Joe Flacco because. If you have a guy who has whether it's a cracked rib, fractured rib, broken rib, whatever, and you still need to put that guy in the game because you don't trust your backup quarterback enough to make he's got to go. There's no reason to have him around if you don't trust him.
I agree.
And I think that's what we saw yesterday because Flacco looked like he was 80 years old yesterday in that limited appearance that he made. He got sacked, he fumbled, and he was completely ineffective.
Right.
And if that's what you have out of the guy who's going to be your backup, then find another player. But Mike White, we have to see because if he has cracked ribs, I don't know if he plays next week. And if he doesn't play next week, then your only other option is playing Zach Wilson.
Well, you might get that again, brother.
Well, Saleh said, Rob Saleh, the Jets coach, said that we're going to see Zach Wilson again this season, but I don't think it's a guarantee, and I don't think it needs to be a guarantee because I think when you look at the situation, and we've said this before, I still think I'm not convinced that Zach Wilson hasn't lost the locker room. And like I said, I think the players love Mike White. I think that's part of it.
I think Zach Wilson has lost the locker room.
I mean, it hasn't been reported per se, but there's been little hints, and part of the hints are that when they're writing so many praiseworthy stories about Mike White and how much his teammates love him,
right?
What's not being said in those stories is, well, the teammates don't feel the same way about Zach Wilson. You have to kind of read between the lines a little bit and not only look at what is being said, but also think about what isn't being said. that's when you kind of get more of an understanding in terms of what's going on.
Well, yeah, that's just the way it is right now. For some reason, Zach Wilson, has been dumped by these guys. It's equivalent to like, Zach Wilson's tires have been flattened, and Mike White got a brand new Camaro, from the front line or something. So there is something.
But there is we do know the reason, brother. Number one, Zach Wilson's not playing well, which in the NFL you got to play well. That's number one. But number two is that comment that he made after the game when he was asked, do you feel like you let down the defense after the Patriots game? And he said no. That was so the wrong answer.
Right.
The defense is busting their butts. The offense can't move the ball, so the defense has got to keep going back out on the field. They're stopping the Patriots, and then the Patriots want to win the game on a fluke punt return for a touchdown. That's a game that any kind of competence for the Jets on offense will win that game. And he says, and when he's asked if do you feel like you let down the offense, and he says no. Horrible answer. But you know what?
When you're that leader, when you're the leader, any team like that, you always have to take the blame, even if you don't believe it. You have to take the hit.
And he didn't do that.
And he didn't do it.
He did not do that. That's how. He just with that answer, he lost the defense.
Right.
Quickly,
brother, we're
sure
running out of time.
Yes,
we already lost the defense. We're going to quickly just talk about the Giants. Technically, they might still be in the run for the playoffs. So just to let you know that, I don't know if you.
Right now the Giants are still in the playoff hunt. They are the last wild card team in the NFC. Basically, this week is a must-win game for them against the Commanders if they want a playoff spot.
Right.
The less said about yesterday's game, the better. The Eagles beat the Giants 48-22. Eagles clinched the playoff spot, first team in the NFL to do that. But the Giants looked awful, and the Eagles looked like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Right now, I was looking at the Giants' schedule. They have the Commanders and the Colts seem like definite. I don't want to say definite wins, but possible wins. The Colts more likely than the Commanders. The Commanders are going to be a tough game because obviously we saw a couple weeks ago when they finished in a tie. The Vikings, I'm putting down as a loss, and then they play the Eagles in the last week of the season. So the only way that turns into a win is if the Eagles are resting so many players because they don't want to get anybody hurt before the playoffs, because they're clinched already. So I don't think the Eagles are going to need that game for home field advantage. I think they'll have it already. And I could certainly see the Eagles playing a B team and saying, look, we don't care if we lose. It doesn't matter in the standings. And if we lose, we lose. Who cares?
Yeah, but it's within a division. But it's within a division team rivalry, and also
doesn't matter.
The whole will they make the playoffs or not? So who knows?
Doesn't matter. And the only reason it doesn't matter is because the Eagles don't care about the Giants. The Eagles care more about not getting anybody important hurt before they start a Super Bowl run. If Jalen Hurts plays in that last game of the season, this meaningless last game, and hurts his arm, and now the Eagles lose an MVP candidate, and their Super Bowl run is over.
Right. Well,
so they're not going to do that.
Okay.
They're not going to do this. So maybe you wind up getting a stupid win that way. But right now, I see the Giants going 2-2 in their last four. So does 9-7-1 get them into the playoffs? I don't know.
I think so, only because the rest of the divisions are really bad, except for NFC West. Just if they
the Central is or the South is bad, but the West is
okay. West is where the eighth team is coming from, if not the Giants.
Right. Well, I mean, and the Lions too. I posted this on Facebook yesterday that I think the Lions are going to finish with a better record than the Giants and the Jets.
Yeah, you're right.
And if that happens, if the Lions finish with a better record than the Giants, they might wind up taking the Giants' playoff spot.
Okay, brother, we're going to have to end it right there. You've been listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC. He's Tim Leonard. I'm Rob Leonard. We're here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And just as a reminder, your WHPC weather forecast powered by Pantano's Gourmet in Hewlett, Uniondale, and Garden City Park. This afternoon, well, it's going to be, that snow that happened this morning was really crazy. It's not sticking to the ground, but it's sticking to parts of your car maybe. Take the 5 minutes and clean off your car. Currently, right now in Garden City, it's 35 degrees at Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC. The rest of the day is going to be mostly cloudy, and unfortunately, the sun's not going to be really coming up. So it's not going to melt off the rest of the snow. Let's be careful out there driving. Of course, it's always a little problem sometimes with the freezing rain and the freezing snow. And don't forget about Alternative to What every Tuesday at 7 p.m., playing the best in alternative music from the 90s to now. Listen to artists like Nirvana, Weezer, The White Stripes, and more. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.